Hey folks, welcome back. My next project is to install a diesel heater in the van. Since I'm planning on using induction for cooking, with a diesel heater I'll have one fuel source for heating and driving versus installing a propane heater. Webasto and Eberspacher make high-end diesel heaters that cost almost $1,000. You can buy a cheap Chinese knockoff on Amazon for less than $100. However, you get what you pay for. Those cheap heaters have numerous problems, including poor casting and low quality accessories like the fuel lines and the pump. Now you can replace all those accessories and have a second unit on hand in case there's a failure of the first one for less than the cost of one of the high-end units. I chose a middle road. I purchased a Lavaner 2 kilowatt diesel heater, which is a Chinese-made heater, but it already has a lot of the upgraded components and it has a really good reputation among van builders. Before I can install that though, I'm going to need to build out some of the interior in my van. So here we go. Over the last few days, I've built out and prepped this kitchen for the van, and this is going to give me a spot to install the diesel heater. So it's going to be behind the driver's seat under this spot here where the cooler will slide out. So this panel lifts up and that gives this storage area that I can install the diesel heater. I've got a new Lavaner diesel heater here, and I'm going to open up the box and see what we've got. So I've decided to put the Chinese diesel heater under the cooler slide, and next step is to drill a hole in the bottom of the van. So I've located my spot here. I've drawn out a circle and I'm going to drill up from the bottom. I hope I've got this located right. Well, that's going to take two hands. The first hole is drilled. Let's go inside and see how we did. Here's the cubby where the diesel heater will sit. There's the hole that I've drilled. So if I set the heater, I set this right up there on that hole, that's how it's gonna sit, which is a little close for this heat register, but I think that will be okay. So that's where it's gonna be. All right, so next up, I've got my hole drawn here. Just have to cut it out with a jigsaw, and that's gonna take two hands also. I've got my hole cut after a few broken blades. I went and got a pack of long blades, and now my hole is cut and it looks pretty good. So that sits nicely there. This sits nicely there. And so now I am just going to drill some holes to put these bolts in to hold this down. I'm gonna drill another hole in the mounting plate here, somewhere along the side, for the fuel pump wiring to run through and clean that up. And then I'm gonna paint these edges with a little rusty metal primer, and I'm gonna seal the whole thing once it's in with some fire block sealant just to minimize any heat transfer around the outside. So that's the program. Let's get it done. Here's the plug that I cut out for the diesel heater exhaust. Gives you a good look at what my floor looks like. We got carpet, 1/2-inch ply, a layer of vinyl, and then some gym flooring for insulation. Quite the sandwich. Got my mounting plate in place, ready for the diesel heater. Diesel heater installation's coming along. I just threw all the stuff from the box into here, so it's a total mess. But I've got the heater mounted, and we'll see. I don't know how hot this plate gets, so I'm going to be careful the first few times I run it and see if that heats up, but it's not directly touching the exhaust, so I think it should be okay. And then over here I just ran wiring for a fuse block that's going to pull auxiliary power off of the house battery, and that will provide power for the diesel heater and anything else that I want to run in the kitchen. Continuing to work on the diesel heater installation, I am dropping the fuel tank, and it's interesting. So I started up here just behind the fuel pump and got the fuel lines disconnected with a cheap plastic tool off of Amazon. So I got those disconnected, and then over here I've got the fill hose and vent hose disconnected, and now I'm working on loosening these bolts for the tie-down straps. Got a jack holding the tank up, and I've got to run down to about a quarter tank. Rear hold down bolt, and it just snapped in half. Fortunately, I knew this might happen, and I was prepared with a replacement set of straps that have bolts on them. So, actually made my life a lot easier because I didn't have to torque it the whole way off. Now I gotta do the front one. And with only minor additional struggles, tank is down. Here's a good look at the fuel tank. I have no aux port on the sending unit, just the fuel return, and the two vents on either end that appear to be capped. These hoses are splitting, so I'm going to replace those. And as much as I'm dying to get in there and see what's going on, I'm going to give this thing a whole clean up first. Spray it down with some Simple Green and maybe some engine degreaser, and then scrub this bad boy. I got my tank cleaned up. I'm not gonna go nuts. I could wire brush and scrub this whole thing, but I'm not gonna paint it, because if I ever convert to 4x4, I'm gonna have to replace or re-drop the tank anyways. So I got the sender all cleaned up. Time to pull it and see what's inside. All right, I got the sender out. It's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle getting this thing out. But there you have it. It looks like maybe there have been some mods done on this, so I'm gonna have to take a look and see what I've got here. All right, it's gonna be a little hard to see this, but if you can see in here, here's what's inside my tank. And it doesn't look awesome. I've definitely got some delamination going on. But I've got my screens exposed, and you can see these things are a real mess. So I'm gonna take those off, clean them up, stick them back on, and then someday we'll have to deal with this disaster here. Clean your screens, folks. Look at what's coming out of here. These things were almost entirely plugged. Well, should be a little bit better after this, that's for sure. I got my screens all cleaned out with a little shop air and cleaned out the pickup. Now it's time to drill a hole in this puppy and put it back together. Okay, I've got my sender all put back together. Screens are clean. I blew everything out with shop air. I've got my standpipe installed for the Chinese diesel heater and torqued down. So this is ready to go back on the tank. Tank's all put back together. I've got new hoses on, very nice. Got the sender all cleaned up, put back together with a new standpipe and fuel hose routed. So now it's just time to push this back in underneath, lift it up and bolt it in. All right, I just finished up all of the work under the van on the Chinese diesel heater, and here's what we've got. The standpipe comes in from the fuel tank here to the pre-filter. That's like a fuel water separator, and then flows down here to the fuel pump, and then up into the heater. Air intake comes out and lives up along the frame above the fuel tank so it can't get splashed with road stuff, and then the exhaust comes out and down to the sidewall of the van here and turns outside. The only concern I have is proximity between the exhaust and the fuel pump. So I have plenty of extra fuel hose if I need to reroute things. This only required me putting one additional hole in the van, other than the big one there. So I don't feel too bad about rerouting things if this doesn't work out, but I think we're in pretty good shape and ready to fire it up. Hey folks, here in the van to show you the finished diesel heater installation and show you how it works. Okay, so here's the setup. We've got the diesel heater installed under the cooler slide, and I haven't mounted the controller yet, but we're throwing heat right out here, and after priming, this thing has been throwing great heat. Let me open it up and show you. Here I've got the cooler slide taken out and the compartment exposed, and here you can see the diesel heater installation. So it's mounted up well to the carpet. There has been no issue with heat transfer there. Wiring is running in from my new fuse block, and the connection here was a little close, but it's been fine. There have been no issues with this unit, and it's nice because I can set the heat to blow in any direction I want. We're pulling intake air from this compartment, and there's some holes here and here that it can draw air in from, and there has been no problem there. So overall, working great. Having this heater has been a total game changer for the van. It's been a few months since I installed it, and I've been running it in temperatures down to the low 30s or high 20s, and it heats the entire van up really quickly. It has this really sweet little remote that allows me to start the heater from bed, so I can wake up in the morning and turn it on. I'm looking at getting an aftermarket thermostat that'll allow me to set a temperature in the van and keep it running all winter while we're skiing so that the water system doesn't freeze. But in the meantime, since I've installed this, it's been running great. It's a huge upgrade for the van. So really happy with this install. If you found this helpful, I hope you'll like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what else you'd like to see, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks.